You need to play Kingdom Come Deliverance. It's definitely not a perfect game, but it's definitely an unforgettable experience. Welcome to my review of Kingdom Come Deliverance. Alright guys, welcome back. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining me once again. This is my review of Kingdom Come Deliverance. Let's get right into it. How I played Royal Edition, got it on a nice price, got it on sale, and I've been quite satisfied with my experience with the game. Very happy. Smooth experience for the most part, but there's definitely a lot of stuff that we need to get into. First of all, let's talk about performance. Something we don't usually touch on that much, but let's get into this section of performance, bugs, how it works. This game had a bad reputation in its launch stages of it being a buggy mess at launch, lots of issues, almost being unplayable for a lot of players. This game came out in 2018, it's 2022 now, new year, and times have changed, and Warhorse have definitely put in the hard work to ensure that the game is fixed and running smoothly. Even on the PS4, there definitely are still some mechanical issues, but that's more so with gameplay choices than performance issues that are causing issues due to the hardware and such things. So it's been a smooth experience, good so far. I'm playing it over on the base PS4, so we don't have a SSD over here. So unfortunately, the loading screens are very, very invasive. Genuinely loading from the main menu to the loading into the world takes about almost 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Sometimes, actually a lot of the times, when you're about to start dialogue with other characters, it takes about 10 seconds. 10 seconds to start dialogue with the character, 10 seconds to open a map. So of course, a lot of these issues are going to be avoided if you're playing over on a decent PC that's got some decent specifications, but over on the base PS4, just for those people who like to know, and probably gonna experience these type of issues if you're playing on console. But if you're playing over on PC, you're probably gonna have a somewhat much more smooth experience. This poor optimization has definitely made the game more tedious, to say the least, but it's definitely still an enjoyable experience. When you're playing the game, there aren't any crazy frame drops. It's a smooth experience. That's why I said it's smooth. Aren't really much any pop-in. It's not that bad. It happens rarely. You really have to be looking out for it, but it's definitely not going to break immersion because of it's lacking in terms of optimization. And okay, of course you haven't played this game. This is a review before you buy the game, but gosh, goodness me, the lockpicking in this game, absolutely a nightmare trying to lockpick something on controller. It genuinely took me hours to finally get a handle on the lockpicking. And this is after watching multiple videos on YouTube from like Maddie Plays just to get it down. It is very difficult on controller. I've seen the PC players haven't really had an issue on this, but it's little stuff like this that this poor optimization for console that may put off a couple of players, but definitely nothing too strenuous, nothing too serious that's going to completely put you off. But at the same time, I'm genuinely just happy that this game actually made it to consoles, made it to PlayStation 4, because this is clearly, their first game. This game is clearly made for PC, but it made a decent port that it runs smoothly during the gameplay, and I'd say that's the most important part. And they nailed that for the most part, so we're at least not going to have that issue. Now, let's get to the nitty gritty of the game. Okay, so from my review so far, you may be thinking, hey, this sounds like a game I need to avoid. Slow loading times, issues with the design choices, poor optimization. Yo, guys, in the grand scheme of things, these are small issues. Genuinely. Most of these issues really aren't too invasive, and you can continue and have a great experience with the game despite them. Now, let's get to the nitty-gritty of it. If I were to give this game a blanket statement for most gamers to understand, Kingdom Come Deliverance, in layman's terms, is essentially somewhat of a Bethesda RPG, but with extra steps and more meaningful player choice. The story takes a while to get going, but when the pace picks up, it's very engaging. The story is taken seriously, but you'll have fun with the game as the tone is quite light-hearted. Henry, our main character, is an interesting character, and it's interesting to see his growth as you start off as a mere blacksmith's assistant, your father, and as you rise up to become a respectable knight to your lord, Radzik. The cast that surrounds him is also don't slouch at all. Very interesting characters. Henry's of course the main character. Other notable characters are Lord Radzik, Father, the multiple enemies that you'll come across, and Teresa, who's also another interesting character who plays a somewhat interesting role in the story. So this is definitely somewhat of a story-driven game. You may not think of it when you play the game, but it's somewhat more of a detective game. So if you were to watch reviews, you might not get that vibe, but as someone who's played the game, played through it a couple of times, it's definitely somewhat of a detective. You definitely find out about murders, you investigate things, you find out things, and it's very interesting throughout as you go through the story. So it's definitely something that you enjoy and something you can look forward to. Is what really sells this game. What a beautiful atmosphere, chilling, relaxing, cool atmosphere that you get here. If you're the type of person who enjoys medieval games, this is definitely the game for you. Superb. This game is set in the medieval kingdom of Bohemia, an imperial state of the Holy Roman Empire. The game has a strong focus on being historically accurate. The story takes place during the War of Bohemia in 1403, in the time of King Wenceslas IV. Now the world that Kingdom Come Deliverance. Warhorse did a superb job at doing this. The world that you inhabit seems, looks, feels authentic. The characters that you work with, they all have their own systems. They wake up, go to work, go to bars, they live life. It's great. And the way you can interact with the multitude of these characters is really, really good. It's surprising how much depth that they gave to all these characters, because you can go over, have a conversation with the shopkeeper, go into a spot, rob him. There's so many different paths you can take. If you choose to be a scallywag, there are definitely a lot of ways you can do it to be a scallywag. The atmosphere is great. Out of all things, what I want to make very clear to all of you, while the story is serious things happen in the game, there definitely is a light-hearted game. The tone is good. You're never going to be feeling depressed while playing this game. It's exciting. Interesting stuff is happening left and right. You're going to be very satisfied with all of that. There are a couple of towns that you can visit over here. There's a bit of variety over there. It's definitely a beautiful, plain, peaceful. You have a horse. There are different things that you can do. The world is interesting. There are random events that happen. Many different things that happen. And quite a few interesting gameplay decisions. Just looking at the way that they tackled fast travel. Not exactly fast, because you do move pretty slowly on the map when you execute it. But it does keep it somewhat interesting. More so in the beginning. It does get old towards the end. Also in the beginning, that various things can happen. You can perhaps run into a stranger, perhaps be ambushed, attacked by animals. Multiple things can happen to you throughout your journey if you choose to take advantage of the fast travel system. The world is interesting characters, and it's a place that you will actually really enjoy visiting. There are very few games that give you that warm, fuzzy feeling after you complete it or when you cast your mind back to it. And Kingdom Come Deliverance could very well be that. Alright, we've considered quite a few things, but let's get to the meat of it, the meat of the bones, the combat. One of some gamers' most favorite part. Some games are literally built upon their combat system, such as the Dark Souls games and many other titles. Kingdom Come Deliverance is probably not going to be made famous or known for its combat. Alright, now combat in Kingdom Come Deliverance is probably going to be the most controversial and touchy subject of the entire game. This is where some people consider it a special and unique experience. Others will have completely different feelings. Now I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. During my first playthrough of Kingdom Come Deliverance, combat was probably the worst part of the entire game. And that is definitely a huge problem, is combat for most games is actually the main aspect, and it's what people are looking forward to the most. Unfortunately, in Kingdom Come Deliverance, Particularly in the beginning, the video game cheese, the jankiness, comes to the forefront, and that becomes the main issues that you experience when interacting with this combat system. It definitely does improve over time, but I have to be honest, in that first playthrough, definitely tough. Didn't look forward to getting into combat. Absolutely enjoyed the other aspects of the game, but the combat system was really causing issues in that area. Something that really needs to be dealt with. I'll be honest though, in my second playthrough of Kingdom Come Deliverance, my thoughts definitely changed. When fighting multiple opponents, the combat system completely falls apart. You can't keep track of your targets and can be finished in seconds, while the 1v1 combat is a lot better. Either your opponent is a parry guard that you can never hit, or a country bumpkin with no armor that goes down in a few shots. Unfortunately, the combat in Kingdom Come Deliverance for most players could end up failing to be fun. But there's a caveat. I played Kingdom Come Deliverance for a second time, and my opinion on the combat did change alongside during that second playthrough. But the main difference that happened was that I spent far more time in grinding the combat and truly delving myself deep into the combat system. I'm not saying in the first playthrough I went shallow, but for the second playthrough I went deep and grinded and made sure that I completely understood every single facet of the combat. I did training. I did it for hours. Maybe 4 to 5 hours of just doing combat, training with Sir Bernard, trying to get my combat up to scratch. And only then did I really start to enjoy the combat, particularly the 1v1. Once you start getting some combos going, once you start getting into the groove of stuff, this combat can be pretty exciting, dude. You can do some pretty cool stuff, cool combos. You can end up dominating people in the 1v1 combat. But even despite me getting good at the combat, fighting against multiple opponents still proved to be troublesome. It's definitely not a game you can just jump into and get the combat down within just a few hours and would have mastered it. No. Definitely difficult combat. I'm still gonna say that the combat is an issue and fails to be fun unless you grind hard into playing this game. It takes a large amount of patience, and I'd say that's the quality that if you're going to play this game is what you need. Patience. If you have patience and are willing to accept the game for some of its flaws and really delve deep into it, you can definitely have a good time. And that's part of what the game does. It captures realism, and they want you to improve alongside Henry. You start off trash, but by the time you finish the game, you are a competent knight of Lord Radzik, and you're kind of a G, rich, all that stuff. You really make it. But I will have to say, when you're fighting multiple groups, the combat falters. Quite some jank there in the combat, so that's where it falters. And hopefully in the next Kingdom Come Deliverance game, they do make some changes to the combat, so when they're fighting against multiple opponents, it is still interesting and exciting and possible. A lot of arguments that I've received from the multiple people of the community, they say that, hey, it's realistic, man. Come on, dude. Like in real life, you couldn't fight 5 guys at a time anyway, bro. That's realism for you. And I understand that, but during my first playthrough, I'll be absolutely honest to you guys. Like when I saw 5 bandits or saw multiple enemies, bro, I'd be like, oh, damn it, bro, I gotta combat, I gotta fight people, damn it, bro. Like the other parts of the game, the dialogue and the different things that you can do in the game are much better and better designed than the combat system. And that is a real problem in itself. Now, guys, if I were to make a recommendation to you guys, ensure that Kingdom Come Deliverance is not your first RPG. This is definitely a game that experienced gamers and somewhat decently experienced gamers in terms of RPGs and other action games will definitely enjoy. If this is your first RPG, I definitely can't recommend it because there are a lot of complicated systems and it requires a lot of patience that you need experience to be able to overcome, that I'd recommend. If you haven't played RPG and you just want to start with this, okay, go for it, but Don't let this game put you off other RPGs or be turned off from the genre because of your bad first experience. You gotta learn how to crawl before you can run, guys. So I'd say if you haven't played an RPG before, perhaps play something like Skyrim, classic, simple game. Other RPGs that are out there, bro, plenty. Witcher 3, perhaps. Just something so you can get that RPG, juices in your veins. So you can get used to the experience and so you know somewhat of what you're doing. Because you definitely need patience to be able to play this, So I'm sure that this is definitely going to be great for those RPG veterans. So yeah, definitely if you lack patience, bro, this game is probably not gonna be for you, because there are a lot of things that could annoy you, such as the saving system. This is not the type of game where you can save scum. Definitely not. No. They do it in a way that you play carefully, so that you ensure that you make the right decisions and you can't, save scum as we are so used to in other RPGs. But despite all of this, guys, I've had a lot of fun with this game. Truly a great experience. The amount of content here is large, definitely large. I'm having a good time with the game. I've had a great time with the game. And every time I look back on the experience, I always look back on it positively. A large amount of the bugs and issues have been fixed. So whatever platform you're on and your system can run it, go ahead and get this game. If you're a medieval nut, this is for you, bro. A lot of stuff for you to enjoy. A very enjoyable experience. Alright, guys, now I want to get into the spoiler section of the review. It's a pretty old game, so I want to have a nice little discussion with the guys who've enjoyed the game, just seen this review just to reminisce and think about the game of past that they've truly enjoyed. So, okay, let's look at the story from an objective point of view. Honestly, from what we experienced here, it's a decent experience. Nice little prologue. It went well. Henry's an interesting character. Genuinely disappointed that Radzig didn't reveal to himself that he was his father from the very beginning or earlier in his life. Seems very sus. Just because he's your bastard child, not the very best. That even by the time the game was complete, I was kind of annoyed how he just out of nowhere yo, I am your father. Hey, at least we know that Henry is now of noble descent. Nice stuff happened. If I were to say my favorite character, I'd say it would be Henry and Hans Capon. I started off really not disliking the guy. That was definitely their intention, but I definitely have grown to like him a lot more. The ending of Kingdom Come Deliverance, of course it did end kind of on a cliffhanger. Not exactly a cliffhanger, but on an unfinished note. We do visit here in Kingdom Come Deliverance on somewhat, how would I put it, underdeveloped. Not really underdeveloped, but they're smaller towns. The roads are made of mud, for example. You see Rate, and that's the large town. So it'd be very cool to see something such as the capital highly developed, well done, the beautiful churches and such, the craftsmanship. So I'll be very excited to see what else Warhorse has to offer. So those are pretty much my spoiler thoughts on the story. Alright, guys, so if we're talking value, go ahead and buy this game. You're gonna have no regrets. If you ensure that you get this on sale, you're definitely going to enjoy this. It also comes, I purchased the Royal Edition on PlayStation 4 and it got it at a really, really good price. Came with all the DLCs, and those DLCs come with some extra story quests and some extra loot that can be found throughout the world via chests. Just get the Royal Edition. It's really so, if you get it on sale, it goes very, very cheap. Definitely gonna enjoy it. There's definitely value in the game. And there still may be a couple of side quests that I haven't exactly completed, but value for money, very long, and that's not even including some of the hours I've spent, save scumming because I've messed up a couple of missions. So definitely value for money in this title. Alright, guys, Thank you so much for joining and listening to my review. You can go ahead and buy Kingdom Come Deliverance, bro. So my final rating for Kingdom Come Deliverance will be a solid 8 out of 10. Definitely an imperfect game, but a game I would say and have to admit is close to my heart. Not everything needs to be perfect for it to be able to be heartwarming and authentic. And authenticity is something, and uniqueness is something that Warhorse definitely captured with this game. There's no RPG like Kingdom Come Deliverance. The way that they've tackled the different systems, the way that they've tackled thievery, like the story, all these things, the world, you're not gonna find it in another game. It's definitely not generic. It's not your generic Ubisoft, it's not your generic, Far Cry, Assassin's Creed. No. It is one of a kind. I recommend you go and play this game. So enjoy, guys.